What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Invest Iowa. Again, Ethan MONTANG, and we're going to do the second part. This is about seller finance and step by step breaking down what seller finance is, how to bring $0 into a deal and benefit all parties. A win-win-win-win for the realtor, for the buyer, for the seller, and for the other realtor.
Totally.
Is that possible?
It is possible. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on how creative you're being and the team that you're working with and how well you are communicating what seller financing is to the end buyer and seller.
Okay, so define to me what seller finance is.
So seller finance is where you purchase a property without a bank and the seller finances you the property. They take position of the bank, and then the interest rate that the bank would normally charge you actually goes to the seller. So it's still a form of passive income for them, and it also lets them delay when their capital gains are going to come in, and which is a big incentive for most investors, is to not get hit with a lot of capital gains.
How do people not get confused and cross the line between sub-2 and seller finance?
So I've never done a sub-2 deal. I'm actually, which is crazy you bring that up, in the process of negotiating one right now, but I'm still on a learning curve for that. So I don't want to speak too much on sub-2. But seller financing has just been a great strategy, especially if you don't have a job. You don't have that W-2, you don't have the debt to income that the bank needs. It still allows you to become an investor, get in the game, and you don't have to go through the bank and meet their stringent requirements.
So for sub-2, you're taking the existing mortgage. For seller finance, you're using the owner as the financial institution, technically.
Yeah, and I don't know if sub-2 that you're the one recorded on the assessor's page. With seller financing, you become the actual owner and you're recorded on the assessor's page. Again, I don't know if that's the case. I think
with sub-2, you get the deed.
You do get the deed.
Yeah.
See?
But it depends. It depends. If it has a due on sell clause, then you can't. You gotta play with it.
Yeah.
So technically, there's companies that will take the due on sell clause and put another clause in it. So then it's technically not sellable
for the buyer. Correct?
So technically, the transaction never goes through.
Yeah.
Because the title company that specializes in doing due on sell clauses holds it, but then it gets transferred.
Bro, it's fascinating how many different strategies you can do in real estate.
Yeah, and I'm not very knowledgeable in it. I know I've been watching a lot of content of this, so I know that it's possible. I know that it's possible, but I wouldn't be able to tell you how they do it. They do it. So for seller finance, tell me what's the step-by-step.
So to even start that conversation, you have to figure out what the seller's incentives are, because if they need all their money, or there's a mortgage in place. Seller financing only normally works when the owner owns the property free and clear, so they don't have to get bank approval or there's not a mortgage in place. So the way I've been able to do it is, I'll just ask, what do you need? What are you looking to do? Why are you selling this property? Are you looking to move to Florida and you need $30K, or what is your incentive to selling this property? And then once you get that, then you can carve and curve your offer around their needs. And that's the most important thing. Figure out your seller's needs and provide them.
So for seller finance, we're not looking for your stereotypical just came in market hot seller. That we're talking about people that have been in the market constantly, and what they're looking for is not being met by the buyers that are in the pool.
Correct. And it's also, I think, important to say that, like, when I'm now you can do seller financing with normal residential, but the reason I've been so successful with seller financing is because I've changed my audience and my target from residential people to investors. So the reason they became an investor is because they like passive income. And a seller financing offer still provides them passive income and removes all their responsibilities and puts it on me. And then they get money in their pocket. They get money every month going forward. And that allows me to get in the door and do what I need to do with the property.
Okay. Your demographic changes.
Yes.
Now you're talking about investors, and they're probably going to be more worried about the numbers, if the numbers actually work.
Yeah, and as long as, again, you can verbalize and vocalize what the numbers are, what they're going to get, what it looks for you, it just changes the tone and the conversation completely. Because you got to remember, when you're working with residential clients, you're trying to take away one of the three largest accomplishments they've ever had: their kids, their college degree, and the house that they purchased. So when you're talking with residential people and you're trying to come in, let me buy your house and not give you all the money through a bank and blah, 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 that's just going to, it sometimes comes off insulting. And so I stopped wasting my time with residential and started focusing on landlords that know the game and understand what that means.
Okay. So when we watch videos on how to seller finance, right, I feel like we're missing one specific part. That is, how do you get that deal started, right? Do you go through a realtor? Do you go through a title company? Do you need a lawyer? How does that process work?
So if you're not, the property isn't on market, and we talked about that the first apartment building I ever bought was a seller financing deal, and it was on Zillow. But if it is not on Zillow and it's off market, then you just kind of have to be willing to start that conversation. And it starts with, hey, I'm a younger investor. This is a situation I'm in, but I'd really like to hear, what situation you're in, what's going on with this property, why are you interested in selling? If you're not interested in selling, is there any other properties that you have that may be not performing so well? And try to solve someone's issue. If you're not just focused on yourself and how to get as much money as you can and save every single penny, and you're genuine and you let the investor know, like, your needs matter, and I'm going to do my damnedest to figure out how to meet those needs, and in the process, we can all win in this.
Okay, so there's got to be a motive for the seller to want to sell that property.
And then you use an attorney, like you mentioned. Then you have to go to the attorney, which is much cheaper than having an agent involved, because you really just got to play the closing costs.
I think one of the things that people don't understand well, especially in residential, is time value of money, right? Because no investor, by no means, is gonna give you what you're asking for, full price. In cash, right? And that's because cash today is worth more than cash in 2 days, right? Yeah. So for seller finance, I loved in the last podcast that we talked, how you talked about, I gave the seller 3 different offers, right?
At the same time.
Did he know that it was you?
Now that was on market, so it had to go through my agent, and then I had to be able to explain to my agent my incentives, like, why am I doing this? And so when I finally got her to understand the picture, she was like, okay. And then again, I didn't even know if he would be interested in seller financing. It was his counter offer back, him picking the offer, that sent it back, that I was like, okay, now at least I know he's interested in selling. And it actually took us 16 different offers. 8 counter offers from him, 8 counter offers from me, till we actually came to terms with seller financing. But the seller financing was on the table the entire time, but the terms were changing: balloon, interest rate, down payment, purchase price.
So what was it? Well, at the end, what was it?
260, 3.5%, 3-year balloon, 30-year amortization, $20K down.
3-year balloon. Okay. For those 3 years, what is your perspective? Because talk about somebody that doesn't understand, like me. What the hell are you going to do with a balloon payment? You got 3 years until you have to pay the rest of the property. What are you going to do?
So that's where, when you're doing this, value add comes in. I've never bought an A property that's just turnkey, ready to go. What I've been able to excel and be really good at is value add. I have an amazing partner with the construction company I own, and he is a phenomenal artist. We come in, we do the work that we need to do, raise rents, and then when the difference between residential and income properties is, like, your residential property's value is based off the comps, the other houses in that area, same bedrooms, built the same year. That is not how income properties value is created. Income properties value is created based off the income it produces. It is a simple equation. It is called your cap rate. So it is your NOI divided by your cap rate, and your cap rate changes based on the location that you're in.
Slow that down for me and say it again.
Yeah, totally.
NOI.
So NOI, net operating income, which
that is the amount that you get in the year after all your expenses.
Yes, after your expenses, before debt service.
Okay.
So the purpose of cap rate is because every deal is different, but investors needed a way to compare every deal as if they were the same. And the issue with debt service is you and I could go and buy the same exact building, but because of our credit, because of our income, because of different factors, the terms inside the debt service, your mortgage payment, are going to be different. But if you buy the property all cash, then there is no debt service. So that allows you to compare every single deal as if they're the same if the property was paid off in cash. At what rate is my money capitalizing on itself? Capitalization rate.
That's very important that you say that. How do you relate that now to seller finance for a cap rate on a rental income?
Because that's what banks use to value the property. So if I know that I'm going to increase the NOI by, $1,000 a month, then that simultaneously increases the value of my building. So let's say in 2 years I go and do a DSCR loan, debt service coverage ratio, then I've been able to raise the value of the building, and when I have to put my 20% down, hopefully the building has increased enough in value that I won't have to put any money down. They will lend me the money. Now the loan is with the actual bank, and you pay off the seller before the balloon.
But you got the property that was the biggest stuff.
Yeah.
You're not going to lose the property.
And you don't lose the property. And you got 20% equity you just built into that bad boy. And it's cash flowing. And it's all money, baby.
It's like the real deal. That is a real deal. This is golden information.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate it.
Golden. How do someone... How is... Oh, that was super bad English. Johan, corta esto, por favor. Te lo suplico. Te amo. My editor.
That's amazing. I need him.
I got you. Now, how do you find those deals and proceed with the transaction? I want to talk about the transactional aspect of it, right? Because you can find the property. Do you have a title company? Do you have a lawyer?
I have a lawyer. So I work with
realtor?
Wasker Law Firm here in Des Moines. And again, they are a majority of real estate attorneys, so they already understand the lingo, and you've already done the hard part. You've already done the negotiating. You have the terms, so you come to them, and you can have your own representing lawyer, they can have their own representing lawyer in which they're in communication, but you bring them the terms. This is the property, this is the lot, parcel number, all of those things that you need. I'm the buyer, and the contract's done, and bada boom, bada bing.
Are they the ones that write the contract?
Just depends. They can if you don't know how to do it, but I would recommend just getting on Google or hitting up your boy Invest Iowa over here and telling him to get you a seller financing contract. But no, I don't have them write my contracts anymore. I have a blank one, and I just plug and play the different information based on the deal itself.
Right. For somebody that doesn't have experience, will it be better to go to a title company?
Probably. And don't quote me on this, but I did test ChatGPT and had them make me a seller financing contract. Yeah, bro, it was wild. Maybe this might be a good gem, but and I don't know I haven't taken what it created to an attorney yet, but as far as verbiage and the way it outlined it, all I did was plug in purchase price, all the terms, who the buyer was, who the seller was, the terms, and it created a seller financing contract. Now, I haven't used it yet, but it was capable of doing that. And if it's not legal with attorneys yet, I guarantee it probably will be in 6 months, after they do some updates and stuff. That is very much so on the horizon.
Where do you think ChatGPT is going to take the real estate market?
Dude, that stuff is blowing my mind. I feel a little bit older now, when it's how is technology blowing my mind? But yeah, no, it's crazy what that website can do.
Wow, I never thought of this. Mm-hmm. Because I always ask him for YouTube intros or YouTube, whatever it is, but never just to write a contract. Yeah, and I know that you say that this is not something that a lawyer actually has seen and approved.
Yeah, so I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying if you want to become familiar with the vocabulary and how it's supposed to look, you can do it that way so that when you get the contract or the attorney makes the contract for you, you at least have read one and practiced a little bit and know what's supposed to be in there.
Now, talk to me about terms. What do we mean? What do we mean by terms?
So there's a few things you got to focus on: your purchase price, your down payment, your interest rate, your amortization schedule, and your balloon. Those are those are the 5 key terms when you are creating a seller financing offer. There's a couple other ones, but those are the core.
5.
Yeah.
Okay, purchase price.
Purchase price?
What's so important about purchase price in a seller finance deal?
Oh, actually, this is where it gets kind of controversial. I don't really care as much about purchase price. Like, I'll pay more for a property if it's seller finance because I don't have to go to a bank and I get to negotiate the other things. So I'll pay way more for a property than it might be worth right now if the balloon payment is in 10 years. So like, I'll pay 5 years in advance of what the property should be worth in 5 years because the balloon doesn't end for 10, and maybe I only have to put a 5% down payment, and maybe I'm getting a less than prime for interest rate. So like,
down payment, how much on average you put from a deal?
less than 10.
Less than 10.
Less than 10, yeah,
Less
bro.
than 10.
I've done the one was $2,500 on that 50,000. I just bought a fourplex in Kansas City. It was $825,000. Only had to put $65,000 down. I believe that's about a 7.5% down payment.
Wow.
4% interest.
Yee. What about the closing cost?
That was split. He was responsible for his own closing costs. We were responsible for ours, and that's the one I teamed up with my partner Ashley.
And you're doing it. Was she the one that closed the deal?
We closed the deal.
You
we co-owned it. Yeah, we co-owned it.
Who do you go with for that?
That was her.
Your company?
Her lawyer.
Her lawyer.
I know the title company was involved just a bit, but that was a system that she had already had set up. Relationships she had already set up. I was just there to help analyze. That's there's a ton of things I'm not good at. But being analytical and gifted with numbers is not one of them. So she brought me in specifically to help analyze the numbers and what that would look like on the backside when the balloon ended.
This is going to be unpopular opinion, but I think the first thing that you should do if you're ever considering going into seller finance, it's finding a lawyer.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, dude. I think, having the relation, I'll add to that. I'll probably agree. Having that relationship before you have to close is so important. So you're not just, hey, I've got this deal that's on a time frame. Like, please help me. You're gonna pay $250 an hour to get that attorney's attention. But if you already have an established relationship, it might be easier for them to just take a 20 or 30-minute phone call or slide in on their lunch break or something like that. But yeah, I guess I'll agree with you on that. Just having the relationship prior to needing to close is very important.
Nobody mentions this, but like, how are you gonna go through a realtor? I don't think so. Like, in most cases, you haven't, right?
Mm-hmm. And I've only done one seller financing deal with a realtor. Right. And that was the one on Zillow.
And it doesn't work for you in the way that you would expect.
I mean, it went fine. Everyone got paid. So it's not like I do recommend agents to not be scared of seller financing. They are going to get their commission. You just got to put that into the terms. But it is just a bit more difficult. And one of the benefits of not using a realtor is the seller makes more money. And that's the whole purpose of this, is like, what are your incentives? How can I get you the most amount of money? And so that's why. And if I'm contacting them off market, then there's not an agent involved. There's no need to bring one in.
Interesting. So talk about amortization.
Amortization. So let's say you have a 20-year AM. That means that your payments, like a balloon, has to be paid in 20 years. It's amortized over that. They split it, there's 12 months in a year. So 20 times 12 would be you have that amount of time to pay off the loan. So the difference between like a 20-year AM and a 30-year AM is you have an additional 10 more years to pay that loan off, but the interest is attached all the time. So you're going to pay far more for the 30-year AM in interest than you would the 20-year AM, but your payment is going to be smaller because you have a longer amount of time. So then that therefore increases your cash flow.
Wow. So good. So
I hope I worded that well.
That's how money's made.
Yeah, that's how money's made, man. And to add on to the seller financing, I just closed a condo in Kansas City. The initial agreements that we had was $124,500, 6% interest, $15K down. But as I started doing the numbers, I realized that like my cash flow was so tiny. So I bought down the interest rate. We ended up settling from 124,500, 6%, 15K down. We ended up settling at 132,000, 4% interest, only 10K down. And at the end of those terms, the seller ended up actually it hasn't happened yet, will end up making about a little less than $4,000 more than he would have if he went with the first offer that we had.
And how much more cash flow are you making?
It lowered my monthly cash flow payment by $215, so therefore simultaneously increased my cash flow by 215. Now you times that by 12, that's not a ton of money, but I don't focus on the amount of money. I focus on the percentage, that cash on cash return.
Yeah.
I don't care about the amount of money it's putting in my pocket. I care that that percentage is higher than 15%, because I know if I learn that strategy and I focus on that, then I can always get bigger deals. And then for bigger deals, there will be more cash flow. But if I stick to that baseline of 15%, then it's all Gucci, baby.
That's so good, man. What's your relationship with banks?
I have a great relationship with the bank. I don't use banks that sell to the secondary market. The bank relationship that I have right now keeps all their loans in-house, which allows me to do things like debt service coverage ratio lending, rather than having to meet their, strict rules of all debts or debt to income and W-2 and all these other things, blah blah blah. Since I quit to do this full time like 3 years ago, most banks just don't like me. It's just that simple.
Yeah, because you're actually taking them out of the equation.
Yeah, and I mean, it's even funny because, so I bought a 57plex in August, and that's really when my portfolio skyrocketed. My banker told me, the vice president of the bank, he was like, don't walk in here for another 12 months. We will refuse to lend to you. And he's laughing, but he's being serious. Until you stabilize that property, we will not lend to you. We don't care what kind of deal it is, what margin it has. Don't come in here for another 12 months. I was like, okay, sounds good. A month after that, I bought the fourplex, and 3 or 4 months after that, I bought the condo seller financing. So he doesn't, shout out to my banker, dude. He doesn't know that I bought those yet. I'm going to have to tell him in the future. But yeah, it doesn't have to slow you down, and that's the important thing. Is like,
but you're cash flowing with all these deals. They're
all
not breaking down. You don't have to sell anything. So
yeah, the only reason I'm liquidating now is to take care of my parents, get an operating officer in-house that focuses on me and how to make sure that everything, because I'm deal flow, I'm analyzing, and I like creating content. As far as the back end and bookkeeping, it's not something I'm gifted with, and it doesn't make sense for me to try and relearn those skills when I can pay someone else to do that and continue focusing on what I'm good at.
That is the one thing that every single investor that is getting to that is so good at acquisitions says.
That's what they focus on.
That's the only thing that they care about.
Yeah.
Why would I learn something else where I know that I'm so good at this particular thing that I can just keep doing it?
Yeah. And me and my contractor go, back and forth. He's much more supportive now, but like, I don't swing a hammer or do any type of rehab in my projects unless I have a camera on me. It is all for content. And people can take that how they want, but the fact of the matter is that's what people on TikTok and Instagram like to see. They like to see you putting holes in walls. And I give him as much credit as I can because he's really the artist behind it, but it doesn't make sense for me to learn how to tile next to him. Just doesn't. He's not going to be the one that has to find the deal or find the financing for the deal to make sure he gets paid. So the more time I'm doing shit there is the less time I can spend finding the next deal or finding capital for it.
Amortization and balloon payments. Like, what do you mean by balloons? Why?
That's when it runs up. So, you could have a balloon payment of 30 years, which I actually have encountered, surprisingly. But normally that balloon is a set amount of time where you then have to go to the bank or have to find some other avenue to be able to pay the investor back. But that lets them plan on when they're going to get that money, because it's not just capital gains you have to worry about. That amount of money is going to increase your income for the year, which means it might increase your tax bracket. So that lets them plan on when that money comes in, and maybe they can make less money that year or have heavy deductions to be able to offset the income that they're going to bring in.
That makes sense.
That's key, bro. Like, I don't know if people can fully grasp why important. You have to be able to explain that to if it's an investor that's not really in the game or understand that, you have to be able to explain to them, like, you may want all your money right now, but you realize, like, you're going to pay 20% of taxes on that, right? Why not we pick a year where you can plan for the next few years how to lower your income or build up your deductions, so when this balloon payment hits, you have a way to not pay so much in taxes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Because from my personal experience, and it's completely limited to, whereas you have a lot more experience than I do, but I feel like the point where you need to start worrying about taxes is when you actually start making money.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I wanted to say something a little bit, but you nailed it on the head there, bro. Yeah.
Right. Because what's the point of having an accountant? What's the point of caring about any of that if you don't have a profitable business?
Exactly.
But in real estate, you have something sustainable, and you
Yeah.
like, you know how to tax defer 1031
exchange. I've done that twice. Yeah.
Right. So you just know how to do your stuff.
Exactly.
But I don't think you sit down and learn how to do that. You have somebody else do it for you as well.
Totally. Yeah. That you need an attorney for, because there's some pretty strict rules on how to actually do a 1031 correctly, so you don't get in trouble with the IRS.
What are some main takeaways that you have that people will want to know if they're wearing your shoes?
So we've been talking a lot about seller finance. I think this is a great transition into seller carryback. It's another creative financing strategy, but it's not the same, right? So let's say that the seller does want all their money up front, right? And then you have to go to a bank and you need 20% down. It's going to be hard, if you're buying a $500,000 building, you need $100K to do that deal. But if you're giving the seller all the money that they need, then you can convince them to do a seller carryback, which is a separate note. So say you're buying the building for $500,000, they've owned it for multiple years, they're about to get $300K in their pocket because they still owe the bank $200,000. So you say, hey, seller, I've only got $50K. I really like this deal. Can we sign a separate note where you interest rate, all those things, balloon payment, amateur, all that goes in, but you lend me the other $50K that I need for the down payment, and now you have the $100,000 that you need for the property. So this is how I bought. Yeah, bro, it is like poof. This is how I bought my 57plex. It was $2.4 million. They wanted all their money, and my bank, since I'm more of a risk, they actually wanted 25% down. So I had to bring $600,000 cash to buy this property. So I got the seller to give me $100,000 on a separate note, seller carryback, and then therefore I only needed $500,000. Then I cross-collateralized the other equity in my properties at the same bank for $500,000, and was actually able to purchase this property with $0 out of my own pocket. My biggest purchase ever, $0 out of pocket. That's the power of owning real estate for a while.
But you took that debt. Most people will have a home and they'll have some equity, and they'll take the equity to go and travel.
A vacation.
You're taking that equity to invest on things that are going to make you more money.
More money.
That's the big difference.
Yeah.
And now you're worth twice as much.
Yeah, dude. It's crazy how quickly my portfolio, like I said, I've been doubling the value of my portfolio every year for the past 5 years, and it's because I am practicing delayed gratification. Now I do splurge on my vacations. Like that trip to Asia, I think ran me like $27,000 for the 10 weeks. But I balled out, dude. I was in villas and like in the club, like we was like VIP, like jet skiing, freaking parasailing, free diving, like anything with an adrenaline rush we were doing, and so it was dope. But like But I bet when you were 22 years old, you were staying at home with other people who were buying VIP club. Yeah, all that stuff. I waited. I practiced it. And so, and sometimes you got to do that. You got to reward yourself. Like you have this beautiful podcast set up, man. Like it's okay to take you and your girlfriend to Chicago or to Florida and splurge a little bit. I know it's hard to do that, but it resets your mind. It shows you and proves to you that what you're doing is on the right track. It doesn't have to be this grind for you never spend money and blah, blah, blah. Like, it doesn't always have to be like that. Because guess what? When I spent that $27,000, you know, it wasn't in my bank account, $27,000. So that made me hungry to go get the bag more.
I guess that's a good way to look at it. It's the same concept as I heard a story one time that like a guy who was selling shoes. He was working in a shoe company, was sent to Chile, right?
Yeah.
And then he went to Chile, and then he came back, and he said, oh, no, there's no market over there. Nobody uses shoes. And then they said another guy, hunger, like full of hungry, that guy. He went over there, tried to sell shoes, and came back. There's a huge market. Nobody uses shoes. So it all depends on how you see it.
Yeah.
It all depends on how you take the advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you.
Dude, you're a stud, man. Your mindset at 22 is so impressive. And like, this is like another way to look at it. A lot of people, when they save up their $20,000 or $30,000 and they're scared to make their first investment, when you drop that $20,000 and you see your bank account go from, 5 digits to 0 digits, right? And you feel like you're broke again. But what you forget is like you just bought an asset, but now there's this hunger inside of you because you don't have that money, and you have more incentive to go make that $20,000 back than if you still had the $20,000 to go then double it. It is one of the weirdest life. I got goosebumps right now thinking about it because it's that impactful. You like almost think you're broke, but you just bought an asset. It's like it just skyrockets your ability to go make cash and just put yourself in opportunities to make more money that you may not have been in if you had that security of the $20K in your account.
That's insane. I guess that's something I haven't experienced. Once I get my first property, I'll call you back and I'll tell you.
Drop that down payment.
but I will understand that because
Yeah.
it's pretty much everything you've saved for, and you haven't had any more amount of money in your entire life.
Yeah.
And then you're dropping it all in something that you don't know if it's gonna work because it's the first time that you do it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane. That is insane.
Bro, I really apprecited this, dude.
This
it's been a good one.
podcast was awesome.
Yeah.
So if you made it this far, you want to reach out to him. I leave his Instagram, his TikTok, him working with a hammer, but not actually doing anything. You're gonna see that it's just all fake.
It's not all fake.
But follow us if you like this content. If not, then I don't know what you're doing watching up to this point. But I'll see you guys in the next one.